Hey, so here we are. I'm driving into Seattle, actually into my office at Northgate today, and I wanted to talk about where is it safe to live in Seattle right now, because there's a lot of talk on a lot of my videos about kind of some of the crappy, I don't know if I could say that, the less desirable elements in Seattle with homelessness and all that crazy stuff. So today we're going to get into it. I don't want you to find out, you bought a house in a neighborhood that you really don't like and that type of a thing, or it doesn't feel safe to you. So we're going to go into what safest neighborhoods are so that you can feel like you are buying with confidence and you know what you're getting into and what you got to kind of keep your eyes out for living in a big city like Seattle, and some alternative places you can go that are a little bit safer than average, perhaps. Okay, so if it is your first time here on the channel, welcome. This is Emily Cressey. I'm a local real estate agent, and I make these videos for people just like you who are relocating here to the Seattle area, because I want you to be able to find a place that you like, whether you're buying a home, whether you're renting for a while, whatever the case may be. Relocating to a new city and a new state can feel like a very big deal. It could be very stressful, and it's hard to know what to do. So in these videos, I do a couple things. We go over stats and data. We drive around and look at neighborhoods. I tell you the pros and cons of my honest experience. I've lived here for, well, I'm over 40 now. I was born and raised in this area, went away to school, and then came back. So anyway, I feel like I have a pretty good perspective, but at the same time, things have changed a lot. There have been a lot of changes in the last 40 plus years. So I just try to keep it real and tell you guys what's going on around here so you can get a good idea for what you're in for, for better or worse. So today the topic is safety. And I want you to go ahead and like and subscribe, because every week we're publishing new videos and I don't want you to miss anything. And as well as that, we're going into details on some of the different neighborhoods that I recommend and some that I don't recommend, but you just might feel like you're willing to brave it and put up with those things. So I will try to answer all your questions, and if I miss a question or you don't see the video on the topic that you want, type it in the comments. I actually love getting comments. I find it very motivational, and I read all of those and I comment to all of those. I like all of those. So if you have some feedback for me, please just let me know in the comments. It would mean so much. And by the way, isn't my hair kind of cute today? I pin curled it after I washed it, and it's super boingy. Boing boing. I don't know how long it'll last, but it's cute for now, so enjoy. Okay, so when it comes to safety, here's how I see it in Seattle. Essentially, the city of Seattle itself, the city boundary, is all suspect in my mind. There are a lot of suburbs outside of that area, but let me tell you what you can expect inside the city of Seattle. It's actually a very rich and wealthy city. We have huge employers like Amazon, Google, Facebook. We have tech workers, hospital workers, university professors, accountants, inventors. We have Blue Origin here. I mean, there is a lot of money floating around in this area, and so we have some very high income folks. We have very high property values, and we have a sales tax that the city gets a piece of, as well as the state government. So there's a lot of money. The money is not the problem. What I see as the challenge is apparently the government and the way that things are run. So we have what I would say is a very tolerant, left-leaning, in some cases self-proclaimed socialist people on the city council. And so they are putting into practice some of their views and kind of seeing how that works out. So what that might equate to is giving away free needles so that people can have clean, safe places to do drugs. What it might equate to is letting people live in tents on the street because maybe they have a drug addiction or a mental illness or some other reason that they are on the street, and they don't prefer to be arrested or taken to jail or an insane asylum, or I don't know where else they could go. Like, I'm not saying I have the answers to these situations, but this is just my observation that this is how these things are handled. And so as a result, we have a lot of homeless people, we have a lot of people begging, we have a lot of people doing drugs in, out in the open in certain areas, especially in downtown Seattle. And we have homeless tent encampments along certain streets, including the freeway. And if you're looking for street names, I would take a look at Lake City Way in northeast Seattle. I would take a look at Aurora Avenue, Highway 99, which doesn't have as many tent and homeless encampments, but does have crime and prostitution. And I would take a look at some areas in downtown Everett, as well as a lot of places in Tacoma. So we have a variety of lax enforcement areas. And so what this comes down to is that you might live in $1 million home or a $2 million home, but in order to get there between the freeway and where you live, you're going to be driving through places where you see people holding up signs, begging for money, homeless, veterans, mothers, everybody's out of work, has no food, etc., etc. Now, I used to work as a volunteer at a food rescue bank kind of a thing. So they would take the canned food that had maybe passed the pull date, or the expired lettuce and vegetables that was maybe not as fresh anymore, that type of a thing, and we would take it and put it in somebody's garage and give it away so that people could then have their own free groceries. And I was told and led to believe during that time that there was a lot of food available in the Seattle area. So having the food banks that we do, no one should really be going hungry. We have some great charities like the Union Gospel Mission that give away food to the homeless, and there's just, not even homeless necessarily, but just people in need. So there are a lot of charities. There are battered women's shelters, there are homeless men's and women's shelters. There are a lot of places that people can go. The question is whether they choose to go there or whether they choose to camp out on the street or in their car or their RV and that type of a thing. And I'm not sure why they would be doing that, other than perhaps there's a lack of capacity at the shelters or something else. Anyway, I'm getting into a lot of social issues here, which may not be quite what we're wanting to go into. But these are issues that are of concern to a lot of people in Seattle, not just because of property values and personal safety, but also for social justice reasons. And, we worry about these people. We don't want them to be suffering, but it's not clear what we as citizens can do. And it seems like whatever the city is doing is not working out very well. So I have looked at in the past some crime density maps. So basically what these are is they put a little mark any place that there is crime going on, and you can kind of see if there are a lot of marks in an area, that those might be some of the less safe places to live. And it tends to correlate with high population density. So I would say the most dangerous area is downtown Seattle. And I was recently driving through downtown Seattle and I was at a stoplight, and I had a homeless guy with no teeth come actually knock on my window. He wasn't just holding his sign by the side of the road. He aggressively knocked on my window to say hello and ask me if I had any food, which I did not. And I also have seen people there that are like wandering around with no pants on. And I've also heard people say, although I haven't encountered situations where people maybe didn't have any place to go to the bathroom, so they were going to the bathroom on the streets. So my sister observed, for example, at the Home Depot on Aurora Avenue in Shoreline, somebody who needed to use the bathroom, but fortunately he had a cup, like a Solo cup with him. And so he was able to urinate in the Solo cup in front of the entrance of the Home Depot to relieve himself before going into the store. And the interesting thing about that was that he then took the Solo cup and poured out the urine right there. So actually it was still there. And then he was able to go into the store in a more comfortable way, although in my experience there are free bathrooms in the back of Home Depot, so I don't know why he needed to do that. Maybe they're locked or they have a code now because this is happening so frequently. My sister observed in another location, I believe this was the Lowe's in Seattle, sort of North Seattle shoreline area, again on Aurora Avenue, that there was a lot of prostitution going on in the parking lot. She said there was a very fierce, angry looking guy with a bandana on walking around the parking lot and looking into cars where women were turning tricks for money, and he was kind of like keeping an eye on the inventory and the progress because presumably he was the pimp for this organization. And so she brought that up to the staff within the store, and they said, yeah, it was a real big problem, but they hadn't been able to effectively address it. I guess the police were not helpful. And so the guy that she was talking to said he had actually put in a request to transfer to a different location, and my sister decided that she was not going to be shopping in that location any longer. Another time, these are all bad stories from Shoreline because that's kind of the area that we live in. My sister goes out shopping a lot and she's a great storyteller. So the other one, oh yeah, so another one was she was out at the Fred Meyer, and she heard the call. Someone said, call the police, as they were walking through the Fred Meyer in a leisurely way. And so she took cover. She didn't know what was going on, if there was an active shooter or what the situation was. She's like, maybe I should go hide in the bathroom until the coast is clear. But she ended up ducking and covering, and everything seemed to be fine. She didn't hear any gunshots. And so later when she was checking out, she asked the checkout gal, what was going on? Why did we need to call the police? What happened? And she said, oh, what? Oh yeah. That happens all the time. And it's typically shoplifting, apparently. And so the rules are at the store that the employees cannot actually touch the person who's doing the shoplifting, nor can they touch their cart, but they can try to get them to stop with words, or they can grab items out of the cart as the people drive by in the cart. So she was able one time, she said, to grab a TV out of somebody's cart, which was a real boon because apparently the employees get a 10% recovery fee for any merchandise that they're able to save from an attempted shoplifting experience. So they have a whole policy around that. Okay, let's go back to the neighborhoods now, because these are fun stories, and you probably think I live in the ghetto or the hood. I don't. Maybe I am, maybe it's becoming that around me, but I think what we have to do is just be careful and kind of have awareness of where we are and what type of a neighborhood that we're in. I've never heard of any assaults or attempted hurts of a person around here. Not too many attacks on people, but mostly just property theft and this sort of whole indigence type of issue. So yeah, so downtown Seattle is definitely the top of the list on the crime map for what's most suspect there. And then the second most high frequency crime place is the University of Washington area. And if you are looking to relocate here to go to college, I don't want to scare you. I mean, it's not like it's a bad neighborhood per se, but there are a lot of people there. It's a high population density area. It is a very urban feeling campus, and you're going to be out off campus on the streets of the Ave, which we have a lot of homeless people and that type of a thing. And I would just say strange things can go down after dark. So if you are going out at night, stick with a buddy, stick with a friend, keep your wits about you. You shouldn't be looking at your phone or doing those types of things. You should be trying to look around, stay alert, kind of be on on task. I'm gonna pause here because I'm at my office, and then I will catch up with you more when I get back. Okay, so going back to where is it going to be safe to live and where is it going to be shady to live. So we talked about downtown Seattle, the U District being some of the most high density crime areas. We also have, oh, there goes an ambulance. That's fun. So we also have these major streets. Lake City Way has a lot of tents, homeless, shelter, like not shelters, but living on the streets, homeless people. Aurora, Highway 99 has a lot. And then some neighborhoods in Seattle are really suffering from these folks moving in and doing like car camping and that type of a thing at the parks. My sister, oh my poor sister, she's experienced it all. So she used to have a place in Ballard, which is kind of a hip, trendy, fun place to live if you work downtown and you're getting into the office. It's on Puget Sound. But what she found was that a lot of people were moving into the area that were homeless, and to me it tends to be that this combination of like walkable streets, like a lot of coffee shops, street level retail where people are walking, lends itself to homeless, panhandling, drug dealing, selling, you know, that type of a thing, because people are on the streets to give them money and to interact with. So in the places that are more car based, you're not seeing as much of that because people are just blitzing through on the car. You'll still see people panhandling at the intersections, like getting off the freeway and that type of a thing, but it's really where people are out and about walking, one, and that it's not enforced for them to not do those types of activities. So Ballard has a very cool, hip, walkable downtown. It has Market Street. You know, you can go to the library, go to the bread store, all sorts of fun things like that. And then it also has a lot of homelessness in that area. In addition to, I believe they did put in some large apartment buildings that were for homeless housing, which probably added to it. And then in addition, what we found is that people are doing car camping with their RVs. So they bring their RV or their car, whatever they're living in, and they just park it somewhere, and it's not, you know, removed or towed or whatever it is, so they can just stay there indefinitely. And a lot of times they'll park on the streets next to a park. And so what my sister was finding was that a park near her in Ballard was getting a lot of needles thrown into the grass. And so the dog walkers, who were kind of the first people out in the morning, would, you know, very generously take it upon themselves to try to pick up these needles and this drug waste, so that when the kids would come out later in the day to play on the swing set, that they were not encountering it and finding it and that type of a thing. And my sister lived a few blocks away from this park, and she had a baby, maybe 1 or 2 years old at that time, and I think at one point she found a hypodermic needle thrown away in her yard, the front yard of her townhouse right by the sidewalk. And so that was, I think, the point for her where she said, hey, you know, no more, we've got to get out of here. And so, you know, everyone has their own tolerance level for that type of thing, but there are certainly some shady things going on. So we can certainly talk about that more in depth, but I think that that's kind of some of the things you need to look out for. Capitol Hill has a nice walkable downtown street. My friends and I used to hang out there in high school, but now I'm kind of like, what? You let us hang out there? I wouldn't hang out there too late at night. I mean, any place where there are a lot of pubs and bars and that type of a thing can get a little bit sketchy after dark, if people are more inebriated out on the streets and that type of thing. Fights and so forth can happen. Oh, downtown Everett is also a little bit sketchy. So, you know, they have a beautiful historical area. They also have a historical area where the homes are beautiful, but a lot of them have been converted and like chopped up. You know, the old Victorian that now is like a fourplex or something, they've been chopped up into a lot of smaller apartments, a lot of lower income types of apartments. And so there is a certain amount of crime and homelessness that you see there. And one of the things that the city has tried to do is to bring in artists. So they say, hey, you can live here in this low-cost subsidized housing as an artist if you bring, your art to the community, and you're a good person staying here. I've seen similar artist lofts in downtown Seattle in the Pioneer Square district, but just bear in mind that the city is often implementing those types of programs in areas that are generally somewhat blighted. So it's a good idea to be cautious with that. I think in general, getting outside the city of Seattle limits, you're going to find better crime enforcement as a general rule. Getting away from these big thoroughfare types of streets is going to be an improvement. And getting onto the east side of Lake Washington, if you can afford it, big if, is also going to be an improvement. I would say almost uniformly the east side has excellent safety records, low instance of visible, crime, homelessness, vandalism, tents. Those types of things seem not to be there as much. I think different levels of enforcement from the city and the police, and different amounts of tolerance for those things. So just good to know that that's kind of how it's happening. So just be careful. We can certainly go into more depth and talk about some different neighborhoods. I don't want to make this video too long, but I would say I pretty much feel safe almost everywhere I go. I would go by myself as a single woman in most places. I would say there are some streets in downtown Seattle where that's not the case, and also going out at night is not always a good idea in those types of areas as well. But for the most part, I never feel unsafe going to the grocery store or being, out by myself or with my kids or those types of things. But crime is everywhere, especially in big cities, and it's good to keep an eye out, keep your wits about you, and let people know where you're going and that type of a thing. But I do feel like this is a pretty safe and comfortable city, and knock on wood, I have never had a crime perpetrated against me here. My car, my house, my property, my person, never had a problem. So hope that sets your mind at ease, and if you have any further questions, let's chat when you're looking to move to town. I can answer them and kind of give you the latest updates from whenever this video goes out. Okay, talk to you soon, and thanks so much for watching.